liberal or progressive Jews, leftist Jews, hell, even self-described anti-Zionist Jews like myself, you're fucking this up. Let me be more emphatic. You are fucking this the fuck up. It's almost as if you don't realize that Israel wanted you to entirely shift the conversation away from Gaza and occupation. Either you're fucking stupid or you're fucking lying. And honestly, I just need you to be fucking stupid right now, because if you're lying, then I'm gonna lose it. You know, we were on the verge, and maybe we still are, of a moral awakening about the atrocities Israel inflicts upon the Palestinian people. And all it took was a couple of incidents of anti-Semitism in the U.S. to knock that right out of the frame. Now, anti-Semitism is terrible, but welcome to being Jewish. You want egg cream? And it shouldn't happen to us ever, but right now, all of your tripping over yourselves to make it look like you're so serious about anti-Semitism has just made the narrative about us. And worse yet, has put Palestinian people on the spot to denounce acts they have no responsibility for. While some of them are mourning the losses of families, neighborhoods, and you're probably saying, well, we can care about both, right? I mean, if that were the case, I don't think we'd be in this position to begin with. But that aside, what's most relevant is that the reason that Israel and its defenders want you to perform concern about anti-Semitism isn't because they want to stop it. They just want you to talk less about Gaza. They want you to also unwittingly connect anti-Semitism to Palestinian activism. That's what they want you to do. And you think you can manage the narrative or out-navigate the Israeli PR machine. You fucking can't. You haven't. And you got played. And let's talk about why there might, God only knows, why there might be an uptick in anti-Semitic sentiment right now. The Jewish homeland. And they also hammer that message, assassinates Iranian scientists. Maybe it has something to do with the apartheid state that brutalizes and displaces Palestinians, that devastated Lebanon, that assassinates Iranian scientists in our name as the Jewish state. And I've seen some leftists be like, well, don't use what Israel does to Palestinians as an excuse to be anti-Semitic. The entire world, let alone Palestinians, have been told for decades by political, cultural, and journalistic figures that Israel is the uncontested Jewish state, the Jewish homeland.
Yeah, it's always, look, I've talked about this before as well. It's like when someone who is an avowed Zionist, who's like an Israeli Jew, says the exact same thing that someone who is not a Zionist or an anti-Zionist says, it's literally considered anti-Semitic. If you are to say that all Jews unconditionally support Israel, and you yourself are not Israeli and a Zionist or whatever, or even Jewish, you are considered anti-Semitic. And that is an anti-Semitic sentiment. But the exact same thing is oftentimes said by ultra-Zionists. Not even ultra-Zionists, like a lot of people say that. And it's considered to be completely acceptable. When the American writers and whatnot get excited about the IDF training American police forces, that's a brilliant moment for American and Israeli relationships, right? But when I say it, it's blood libel. Like, motherfuckers will be like, it's blood libel that you mentioned that, the IDF trains the American police force. Like, that's crazy. But you just said it last week and you were promoting it. So it is like this very weird double standard where you are always trapped in a losing argument. I just ended the dono, sorry. He's going into victim blaming here. No, I think what he's going to try to say is that the reason why motherfuckers can't separate between, and you're right though, I do think that, like, no matter what, anti-Semitism is unacceptable, unconditionally, straight up. But I think what he's trying to say is it creates more anti-Semitic behavior in people when you're connecting those dots on your own, like when you're willingly connecting those dots. And even then, it doesn't matter, because the fault in that circumstance still lies on the person who is doing the anti-Semitic action.
And they also hammer that message home by saying that criticism of Israel, not even anti-Zionism, is anti-Semitic. So if Palestinians and others impacted by Israel are told that it's the Jewish state that represents all Jews while entire families are being wiped out in Gaza, what the do you expect them to feel toward us? A schoolgirl crush? Whimsical curiosity?
Yeah. So the thing is, like, and I've mentioned this before, like, most people that have not been brought up with a sea of propaganda that is like, you have to always support Israel uncritically, unconditionally, always support Israel. Most people that haven't been raised that way are not going to look to this situation and be like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I think like, I think what's going on here is right and just. What's really up is like the rise in anti-Semitism isn't just attributed to like what's going on in the past 2 weeks. That's what's psychotic about this. Like the single largest anti-Semitic attack on U.S. soil occurred a couple years ago, guys. It was one of the, in modern history, it is the single largest anti-Semitic hate crime. The Pittsburgh synagogue shooting happened not that long ago. Anti-Semitism has been a problem in Western society in perpetuity. It has always been an issue. Originally, it was used to justify pogroms against the Jews, expulsion and murder, and forced conversions. Whether you look to Spain or Portugal or Russia or any other place where Jews lived, that's why there's a lot of intergenerational trauma within the shared history of Jews. Okay? That's why there's a lot of Jewish people that are just like always terrified that, you know, there is an enemy combatant, like that at any given moment, someone could just pop off and be like super anti-Semitic. And there's also truth to that. Okay? But you have to separate that. If you are an honest broker, you have to separate. Yeah, anti-Semitic violence went right after Trump was elected. Yet the Israeli government loves Trump, and Republicans, they're awful at willing to sell out Jews abroad to the right-wing mob. Yeah, they are, and they do. And they do. Just like Netanyahu is partnered up with like actual anti-Semites who run anti-Semitic campaigns like Orban. So the issue is weaponizing like legitimate claims of anti-Semitism as a deflection, like drawing it up like a shield in an instance where something that should be completely separated from being Jewish, the actions of a fucking nation state, turn around and use that as a way to be like, oh, well, you know, anti-Semitism is on the rise. Sorry, can't talk about of course, anti-Semitism is awful, but I'm having a hard time understanding why calling out Israeli Jews that are persecuting Palestinians makes you anti-Semitic. I'm not generalizing to all Jews. Someone is making an assumption about what I'm saying. It seems ridiculous. I mean, because the idea is that no matter what, like, you should not be considering like every single person in Israel to be a part of a monolith. And you should also recognize that a lot of that comes from their programming. Like, what are you going to do? I mean, there's people in here right now that probably grew up with this understanding that only recently changed their minds on the subject. Feel me?